Elena Brooks, 35 years old, was an interior designer who had built her own path in Tulsa, Oklahoma. One quiet Tuesday night, her phone buzzed with a message that stopped her heart. "Don't call or come over. We're done." The text was from her mother. Elena stared at it for a long time, the glow of the screen reflecting off her trembling hands. Years of effort, love, and sacrifice vanished in one sentence. She typed back 2 words, "Got it." Then she set the phone down and stared at the ceiling.
She didn't cry. She didn't beg.
For years, she had paid her mother's medical bills, bailed out her brother's debts, and saved the family restaurant from collapse. But at that moment, she felt something inside her finally break. By midnight, her phone was buzzing nonstop, calls, voicemails, texts from the same family that had just cut her off. They were panicking, and she knew why. She had always been their safety net. But now she was done. What happened next would unravel everything she thought she knew about loyalty, love, and blood. Growing up, Elena's family had looked perfect from the outside. Her father, Richard Brooks, owned a chain of local diners that made him a small-town celebrity. Her mother, Caroline, had once been a banker but left her job to help him manage their growing business. Her younger brother, Mason, for years her junior, was the golden child, the heir to the Brooks legacy. Elena was the dreamer, the artist, the one who never quite fit their mold. "The restaurants are our future," Richard would say every Sunday at dinner, his voice booming across the table. "You'll learn the business, Elena. It's your duty." But Elena didn't see her future in grease-stained aprons and profit charts. She saw it in spaces, rooms full of light, color, and stories. While her family talked about recipes, she was sketching floor plans in the margins of her notebooks, dreaming of designs that would make people feel something. When she told her father she wanted to study interior design, he laughed out loud. "That's a hobby, not a career," he said, waving his fork. Her mother kept her eyes on her plate, silent as always. At 17, Elena received an acceptance letter from a top art school in Chicago. She ran into the living room, waving it with excitement. "I got in," she said. Her father's expression didn't change. "If you walk away from this family business," he said coldly, "you're on your own. No tuition, no support." Her mother nodded quietly. Mason, barely 13, smirked from the couch, knowing he'd just secured his place as the favored child. That night, Elena packed her resolve instead of resentment. She worked 2 jobs, waitressing and tutoring, to cover what scholarships couldn't. Every late shift and sleepless night became fuel. By the time she graduated, she had paid for every class herself, without a single dollar from home. College was freedom, but also loneliness. Her classmates had safety nets. She had determination. Sometimes, she'd call home, hoping for a sliver of warmth. Her mother would answer softly, "We're proud of you, dear." But her tone felt distant. Meanwhile, Mason's name was always on her parents' lips, his high school achievements, his future with the family business. One Christmas, Elena came home for a short visit. That night, Mason forgot to lock up one of the restaurants and thieves broke in. Thousands were lost. Her father brushed it off.
"He's learning," he said.
But when Elena missed a family dinner to finish a class project, she got a 2-hour lecture about responsibility. That night, lying in her childhood bed, she realized her family's love came with conditions, ones she'd never meet. Still, she told herself that one day, they'd see her worth. After graduation, Elena returned to Tulsa to start her own interior design business. It was small at first, just her a second-hand laptop and a dream. She redesigned local cafes, turned drab diners into cozy havens, and soon, her modern, elegant style began attracting attention. At 27, a boutique hotel chain hired her to revamp their lobbies across Oklahoma. "You're going places, Elena," her client told her after the final reveal. By 30, she was signing 6-figure contracts. Local magazines began featuring her work. But while her reputation soared, her family's indifference never changed. At family gatherings, her father would always ask, "When are you coming back to help at the restaurants?" Mason would grin and say, "She's too fancy for us now." Everyone laughed. Everyone but her. 5 years later, her mother fell ill. The doctors were direct. Her treatment would be long and expensive. Without hesitation, Elena stepped in. She covered the hospital bills, paid for specialists, and made sure her mother lacked nothing. "We'll pay you back," her father said over the phone, his tone clipped. Elena knew better than to expect that. Her mother sent a short text later. "Thank you, Elena." No call, no warmth, just those 2 words. Still, she told herself it was enough. Around that time, Mason started a side business, a food truck that collapsed within months, leaving him drowning in debt. Her father called again. "Your brother needs help," he said. "He made mistakes, but family comes first." Elena wired $30,000 to clear his debts and another $20,000 to keep the restaurants afloat. Mason never thanked her. At a family barbecue, he boasted about saving the business on his own. Her father clapped his back proudly. Elena smiled quietly, realizing her generosity had only made her invisible. It became a pattern. Whenever something went wrong, the calls came to her. New equipment needed? Elena paid. Mom's treatment required specialists in Dallas? Elena booked it. Each time, she hoped, just once, they'd see her as more than a wallet. But their conversations were always the same. "Mason's doing great," her mother would say. "Your father's planning a new restaurant." One evening, Elena sent her mother a magazine that featured her latest hotel project on the cover. Hours later, she got a reply. "That's nice, but Mason's been working so hard." That was the moment she understood. She could move mountains, and it would never be enough. Still, Elena kept giving. It was habit, not hope, that drove her now. But when her father asked for another favor, a new investment in the restaurant chain, she decided to offer something different. She pitched an idea. "I want to start a sustainable design firm," she said during dinner one evening. "Eco-friendly spaces are the future. Hotels and restaurants are shifting toward it. I've done the research. I just need $200,000 to scale." Her father leaned back in his chair, unimpressed. "A pipe dream," he said. "People don't care about recycled wood. They want cheap." Mason snorted, scrolling on his phone. "Stick to decorating houses, sis." Her mother avoided her eyes, rearranging napkins. "It sounds risky," she murmured. Elena's chest tightened, but she stood firm. "It's not a handout. It's an investment," she said. "I'll pay it back." Her father shook his head. "We're not wasting money on that." Only one person in the room spoke up for her. Mason's wife, Elena. "I think it's a good idea," Elena said quietly. "Sustainability's big right now." Mason shot her a look, and she fell silent. Elena stared at the tablecloth, swallowing her pride. Her father waved her off. "Brandon's working on expanding the restaurants. That's our focus." Mason smirked like a man who'd just won. Elena gathered her laptop, her voice trembling. "I've spent years helping this family," she said. "I've paid your debts, your bills, your dreams, and you still think I'm a joke." Her father's expression didn't change. "You chose your path," he said flatly. "The family business comes first." She left that night feeling hollow, unaware that it was the start of the end. A week later, after another tense family dinner, Elena stayed behind to collect her things. The dishes were cleared, the house quiet except for faint murmurs from the next room. Elena lingered by the sink, her hands twisting a dish towel. "Elena," she whispered, glancing toward the doorway. "I need to tell you something." Her voice shook. "Mason's been taking money from the restaurants, thousands, maybe more. He's hiding it in separate accounts." Elena froze. "Are you sure?" she whispered. Elena nodded, tears forming. "I found the receipts. He's been doing it for years. Your parents don't know, or maybe they don't want to." Before Elena could respond, her father's voice carried from the dining room. "We need to finalize the will," he was saying. "Mason's the one holding this family together. Elena's off chasing her little projects." Elena's stomach dropped. She heard her mother's quiet protest. "She's given us so much, Richard." But her father's reply was sharp. "Money, not loyalty. The restaurants belong to Mason." The words hit her like a hammer. They weren't just choosing Mason again. They were erasing her. Elena slipped out the back door, her heart pounding. The night air was cold, biting at her skin. All the nights she'd worked late to pay their bills, all the sacrifices she'd made, it was worthless. As she drove home, Alana's confession echoed in her mind. Mason had been stealing, and her parents were rewarding him with their legacy. How blind can they be? She muttered, gripping the steering wheel. When she reached her apartment, she sat in silence for a long time. Then her phone buzzed, a new text from her mother. Don't call or come over. We're done. The timing was cruel, almost theatrical. Elena stared at the screen, her hands trembling. It was the same message that had begun everything. Slowly, she typed her two-word reply. Got it. Then she turned off her phone and sat in the dark, realizing that the chapter she'd been clinging to was over. The next morning, she made it official. She opened her banking app and canceled every automatic payment she'd set up for them. Her mother's medical bills, Mason's credit card debt, the restaurant's overdue utilities. Each cancellation felt like a quiet declaration of independence. No more, she whispered. The total stunned her. Over $300,000 gone over the years, poured into a family that never truly saw her. For the first time, she wasn't angry.
She was exhausted.
That afternoon, she brewed a cup of coffee and stared at her reflection in the window. The woman staring back wasn't the desperate daughter she used to be. She was calm, resolved, and most surprisingly free. But freedom came with noise. By midnight, her phone exploded with calls and messages. Her mother, her father, Mason, each name flashing like a ghost she'd already buried. Mason's first voicemail was venomous. You think you can just walk away? He snapped. You're selfish, Elena. You left us hanging. She almost laughed. Selfish? After everything she'd done? The second message was darker. You'll regret this, he warned. We'll take legal action if we have to. Legal action for saving them? She deleted it. The next flood came from her mother, whose messages alternated between guilt and accusation. How could you do this to me? One read. After everything I've been through, you're abandoning your own mother. Another followed minutes later. I raised you better than this. Elena closed her eyes, remembering every time she'd yearned for those words to sound loving. Now they were weapons. Her father's call came last, his voice booming through the voicemail. You need to fix this, he ordered. The restaurants can't survive without your help. You owe us that much. She replayed that last line, you owe us that much. A bitter smile crossed her face. I owe you nothing, she whispered. Her father's voice no longer carried the authority it once had. It was desperate now.
Weak.
The next day, she ignored every call. Instead, she took a long drive through Tulsa, past the restaurants she'd helped sustain. She stopped in front of one of them, its faded red sign flickering. Brooks Family Grill. It looked tired, worn out, like the relationships it represented. Inside, she saw Mason barking orders at a cook. He hadn't changed. She watched quietly from her car, unseen. Then she drove away, deciding she would never look back. That evening, her phone buzzed again. This time it was Alana. I'm so sorry for what's happening, her message read. I tried to warn you. Please take care of yourself. Elena stared at the screen, grateful, and a little sad. Alana was the only one who'd shown courage. Days passed and the calls didn't stop. Her mother's tone softened. Elena, please. One voicemail said, voice trembling. We're family. You can't just turn your back on us. Her father's messages were less emotional. You'll change your mind when you see what this does to us, he said coldly. Mason's texts, however, were full of fury. You're tearing this family apart, he wrote. You think you're better than us, but you're nothing without Dad's name. Elena read it once and deleted it. She didn't need validation anymore. She had her own name, and it was worth something. That night, she sat in her studio surrounded by fabric swatches and blueprints. For the first time, her designs felt personal. She was rebuilding her world, one color and contour at a time. Her life had always been about creating spaces for others. Now she was finally creating one for herself. By the end of the week, their desperation had turned to chaos. "You'll regret this," Mason shouted in a voicemail. "When the restaurants fall, it'll be your fault." Her father texted. Shortly after, "Your mother's health is worsening because of your stress." That one stung, but she didn't reply. It was another manipulation, another attempt to guilt her into compliance. She opened her journal that night and wrote, "They only call when they need something, not when they love me." Seeing it written down made the truth undeniable. Around midnight, Alana called. Elena hesitated before answering. "I shouldn't even be talking to you," Alana said in a rush. "They're blaming everything on you. Mason said he'll never forgive you." Elena sighed. "He's never forgiven me for being independent," she said softly. "But thank you for telling me the truth." They spoke briefly before hanging up, both aware that their connection came with risk. The following weekend, Elena agreed to meet them, one last time. Her father had begged for a conversation, and she wanted closure. They chose a quiet cafe in downtown Tulsa. She arrived early, calm but unyielding. When the family walked in, tension filled the air. Her mother looked tired, her father rigid, and Mason's expression was pure disdain. "You came," her mother said softly. "I didn't come to reconcile," Elena replied. "I came to end this properly." Her father crossed his arms. "You've made your point. Now fix this mess." Elena met his stare. "The mess isn't mine." Mason scoffed. "You're dramatic as always." She ignored him. "I sold my sustainable design project," she said, her tone level. "A national firm bought it for $1 million. Silence fell. Her mother blinked in shock. Her father's jaw tightened. Mason shifted uncomfortably. "You're lying," he muttered. "I'm not," Elena said calmly. "And you know what's funny? I built that success without your help, despite all the times you called my work a hobby." Her father exhaled sharply. "Don't come here to boast." "I'm not boasting," she said, leaning forward. "I'm reminding you that I was never the failure you made me out to be." Mason glared. "You think money makes you better?" "No," she said quietly. "But integrity does. And you lost yours years ago." His face reddened. "You're jealous. You always have been." Elena's lips curled into a sad smile. "Jealous of what? A man who steals from his own family?" Her words landed like stones. Her father's expression darkened. "Enough," he snapped. But it was too late. The truth was out, and everyone knew it. Her mother's hand flew to her mouth. "Mason, what is she talking about?" Mason shot Elena a deadly look. "She's lying," he yelled. "She's trying to ruin me." Elena shook her head. "I'm not lying. Alana told me everything, about the hidden accounts, the missing funds, the receipts." Her father's eyes widened. "Alana?" Mason slammed his hand on the table. "Don't you dare bring her into this." The cafe had gone silent, all eyes on them. Her mother's tears fell silently. "Is it true?" she whispered. Mason didn't answer. The silence was enough. Her father's face turned pale. For the first time, Elena saw him speechless. She stood up, her voice calm. "You wanted the truth? There it is." Her father finally spoke, his tone low and trembling with anger. "You've humiliated us." "No," Elena said softly. "You humiliated yourselves by refusing to see what was right in front of you." Her mother reached for her hand, but Elena pulled back gently. "You texted me, remember? We're done." Caroline's lips quivered. "I didn't mean it." "You did," Elena replied. "And it freed me." She placed a small envelope on the table. "That's proof of every payment I made for this family, the loans, the medical bills, the equipment. Over $300,000. She looked at Mason. "You called me selfish, but I carried you." Then she turned to her father. "You said I wasn't loyal, but I was the only one who never took from you." Her father's eyes flickered with something, shame, perhaps, but he said nothing. Mason sneered. "You think you're some hero? You'll come crawling back when you realize you need us." Elena stood tall, her voice steady. "No, Mason. I don't need you. I never did." Her mother whispered. "Please don't do this. We're family." Elena looked at her one last time. Family doesn't use love as currency. Then she walked out. The door swung shut behind her, leaving the three of them in silence. Outside, the cool wind brushed her face, carrying away years of pain. She didn't look back. Not once. The weeks that followed felt surreal. For the first time in her life, her phone stayed quiet. No requests, no guilt trips, no late-night emergencies. She poured herself into work, channeling every ounce of pain into creativity. Her designs became bolder, more personal. Clients noticed. "There's something new in your work," one investor told her. "It feels alive." And maybe it was. She was designing from freedom now, not fear. Every space she built reflected the peace she was reclaiming. Sometimes, late at night, she'd think of her parents and wonder if they ever regretted choosing Mason over her. But she never reached for the phone again. That chapter was closed. A year passed before she heard the news. One of her old colleagues mentioned it casually over lunch. "Did you hear about the Brooks restaurants?" he asked. "They went bankrupt." Elena blinked, the words sinking in. "Bankrupt." "Completely," he said. "Vendors sued them for unpaid bills. Apparently, there were some shady dealings." She didn't ask for details.
She didn't need to.
Mason's theft had finally caught up with him. Later, she learned through Alana, who'd left him, that he was facing legal trouble. Their parents had retreated into isolation, their once proud legacy in ruins. Elena felt no satisfaction, only quiet closure. The truth had a way of surfacing, with or without her. By then, her career had taken off. The sale of her sustainable design project had given her financial freedom. She opened her own firm, Brooks and Earth Designs, not as a tribute to her family name, but as a reclamation of it. Her office was bright, minimalist, and full of life, exactly how she'd always imagined. Her team adored her. "You make work feel like art," one intern told her. She smiled, touched. "That's because it is." Every new project, every satisfied client reminded her that she was building something real, something no one could take away. When she walked through her studio, she felt a sense of belonging she had never found in her parents' house. Sometimes, she'd receive letters from her mother, apologies scribbled in shaky handwriting. "I didn't see what you gave us," one read. "I was afraid to go against your father." Elena never replied, but she didn't throw them away either. They were reminders, not of pain but of growth. One evening, she lit a candle by her window, read the letters one last time, and then tucked them into a drawer. "I forgive you," she whispered into the quiet. It wasn't about them anymore. It was about freeing herself. In time, Alana reached out again. She had divorced Mason and moved to Colorado with her daughter. "I just wanted to say thank you," she told Elena over the phone. "You speaking the truth that day, it gave me the courage to leave." Elena smiled. "You did the hard part, Alana. You chose peace." They stayed in touch after that, two women who had survived the same storm. Sometimes, they'd laugh about old times. Other times, they'd sit in silence, connected by understanding more than words. Elena's business expanded beyond Tulsa, taking on clients in Dallas, Chicago, and even overseas. Journalists wrote articles calling her the designer who turned pain into beauty. She laughed. When she read that headline, it was true. Her story had become part of her art. During one television interview, a host asked, "If you could say one thing to your younger self, what would it be?" Elena thought for a moment and said, "You don't have to earn love by bleeding for it." The audience went silent, then applauded. It was the closure she never got from her family, and she didn't need it from them anymore. On her 36th birthday, Elena hosted a small gathering with her team and a few close friends. They toasted under soft golden lights in her newly designed studio. "To new beginnings," her assistant cheered. Elena smiled, glass in hand. "To peace," she replied. That night, when everyone left, she stood by the window, looking out at the city that had once felt too small for her dreams. Now it felt just right. She had turned her pain into power, her rejection into rebirth. The silence in her phone no longer hurt. It was harmony. Months later, She received an email from a law firm handling her parents' estate. Her father had passed away quietly, leaving behind debt and regret. The attorney wrote, "Mr. Brooks requested that you receive the deed to the original family diner. He wanted you to have something he built." Elena stared at the screen, unsure how to feel. The building was old, worn, but symbolic. A week later, she visited it. The paint was peeling, the windows dusty. Yet when she stepped inside, she saw potential, a new beginning. "Let's make this beautiful again," she whispered. A year later, the diner reopened, not as a restaurant, but as a community cafe and design hub for young artists. She called it Hearthlight Studio. People gathered there to create, to dream, to heal. Sometimes, Elena would sit by the window, coffee in hand, watching laughter fill the space that once represented pain. Her journey had come full circle. She had lost a family, but found herself. She had been cast out, but built a world of her own. And as she looked around, she finally understood. Blood may bind, but respect and peace are chosen. She chose both, and in doing so, she chose freedom.